Years ago, there was no other option. You either had to deal in US dollars or you couldn't deal internationally. If you wanted to be involved with any kind of commerce, you had to bow to the United States. And the thing I kept hearing over and over and over, and when I expressed it in a presentation I met, I was I got enormous applause. It is people are sick and tired of the United States being a bully. That's all we are. Because our options in dealing with other countries is either if you don't do what we want, we're going to impose sanctions, or we're going to go to war with you, or we're going to launch a CIA counter covert out operation, a color revolution to undermine and subvert your government. We don't deal with diplomacy. We don't treat these people with respect. And that was the message that was coming out of that conference. These people see Russia as treating them with respect, as equals, not as some second or third class citizen, which is why you're now seeing across the Sahel, the middle part of Africa, with Chad, Niger, Mali, going over to Sudan. They're tossing out the French and they tossed out the Americans. American troops had to start pulling their equipment out yesterday, day before yesterday. You see that in Sudan, they're going to offer a port for the Russians to use. Similarly, there are reports that Russia is going to be given port privileges up in Libya, in Tobruk. So what you're seeing is the rest of the world is looking around, just like Turkey. Turkey's been trying to get into the European Union for 25 years. And all the European Union does to the Turks is basically treat them like they're a bunch of field hands from a plantation in the South before the Civil War. No respect. And all of a sudden, BRICS shows up and BRICS says to the Turks, yeah, come on in. And the Turks are going, wow, hey, they really like us. And that has implications for NATO, because once Turkey goes full-blown into BRICS, they're done with NATO, and NATO loses the second largest army.
Did you get a chance to hear President Putin or Foreign Minister Lavrov?
That was a hot ticket to get into, and apparently people had to pay some bucks to do it. So we were with the cheap crowd. So I was sitting there with Pepe Escobar and Scott Bennett, who's another American that was over there, and we were watching it on the screen. And for Putin went up and he went through in detail how the domestic economy is doing. He recognizes that you have got to meet the needs of the Russian people. They have to have some hope for the future. They have to be able to buy what they need for their families. They have to have some financial security. He's all about that. But it was in the question and answer session where he got down to the nitty gritty about foreign policy and dealing with the West and the war in Ukraine. And the United States, or the Biden administration and most members of Congress, are making a real mistake in underestimating the resolve and capability of the Russians. We refuse to deal with even this simple fact. For 15 years, we've been relying upon the Russians to haul our sorry butts to the space station because we can no longer make the rocket engines needed to power the rockets to get us up there. And yet we want to treat Russia like it's some backward society that they're still using outhouses. Please.
What are your thoughts on the rightward movement of the new members of the European Parliament and the reaction by the president of France to disband the General Assembly? I think they call it the National Assembly. That's right, their lower house of their legislature, and call for new elections immediately.
Well, I know that in the case of France with Marine Le Pen, who's always characterized as something to the right of Adolf Hitler, her movement really picked up a lot of seats, and surprisingly so. Now, when you go back and look at how her views with respect to Russia, she's got the Donald Trump treatment. She's a puppet of Putin. She's a sellout to the Russians. She's doing Russian talking points. we'll see if she maintains her openness to dealing with Russia in a sane, rational manner. Because I'd note that with Giorgia Meloni of Italy, she came in touting that they're going to be a more even-handed approach to Russia, but then she seemed to backtrack on that a little bit. So I think the jury is still out whether this shift in the European Parliament is going to take the air out of the war party balloon, or if it's going to intensify the desire. Hey, yeah, what we're really failing to achieve here is not having enough war in Europe. So let's see how much more we can antagonize Russia.
Transitioning to Israel, the IDF slaughtered 240 civilians in order to extract 4 Israeli hostages, and they injured another 600. Ray McGovern has called this a war crime. I'm sure it is. But of course, Israel is jubilant, and maybe that jubilation is tamped down a little bit with Benny Gantz's resignation from the war cabinet. Give us your take on all of this, Larry, please.
Well, this hostage rescue operation, we don't have the full story on it. What is clear is that the U.S. played a role. Reportedly, Delta Force was involved with that operation. They used the pier.
Do you mean troops on the ground?
Yeah. That's there are media reports to that effect, and that
they used the pier.
Yeah, they used the pier to, they're bringing in some humanitarian aid. I guess they got, a lot of it had floated away and sunk. I guess they got some of it back together. But they had some of the Israeli troops secreted inside some trucks. And then it's also not clear whether or not the U.S. forces actually got involved with the shooting. What is clear is that, they rescued 4. But they also may have ended up killing some other hostages. We don't have the full story on that yet. But, it's one thing to go out and shoot and kill a guy that's standing there with a gun. That used to be the training that you would get, particularly within the SEAL community, what they called CQD, close quarter defense, because they'd be trained to deal make split decisions about shooting somebody, whether they were a threat or not. Because it turned out that a lot of times during the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, our troops were shooting people that didn't need to be shot. And so they were trying to up the training to make sure you could make those decisions. When you kill this many civilians, I guarantee you there were not 240 people standing there with guns defending those hostages. There were women and children that were murdered. And this is just, the Israeli approach is to use a hammer to crush a peanut. And it's just, it's unconscionable. And they can celebrate getting those 4 out, but it's not going to bring the war to an end. If anything, it's going to intensify the problems in the Middle East. Because I think this is resonating in the streets of Cairo, in the streets of Amman, and in the streets of Istanbul. And that's going to make it even more difficult to find a peaceful resolution.
Benny Gantz and Benjamin Netanyahu, with the exception of personality, isn't it Tweedledee and Tweedledum? I mean, Gantz has blood on his hands from long before October 7th, from the days when he was defense minister and when he was the IDF chief of staff.
Yeah, no, this is not going to change Israeli policy in terms of how they're going to deal with the Palestinians. Gantz, I think, is jockeying. He recognizes that Netanyahu's not a popular president. The policies that Netanyahu is following are popular. That's the irony here. So I think Gantz has seen that he's got to distance himself from Netanyahu, setting himself up as possibly winning the next election or making his way into power. The real unknown at this point is whether Israel is going to make good on its threats to go into southern Lebanon. If they do, it will be a disaster for Israel. That I think there's some in the military there that realize it would be a disaster, which is why, despite all the repeated threats that they're going to do it, they've been talking, The lead general has been talking about doing it since January of this year. Here we are, coming up towards the middle of June. So 6 months in, they're talking, but they're not doing. And meanwhile, Hezbollah has been ramping up missile and rocket attacks in the north. They've been setting parts of northern Israel on fire. They have forced the Israelis to evacuate close to 1 million people out of their homes and settlements. So it's Israel's caught. It doesn't matter how much weaponry they get and material support from the United States. They don't have the manpower strength to be able to sustain a fight both in Gaza and then the kind of fight that they would face against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. It would be, they lost the last one in 2006, and the situation has only gotten better for Hezbollah and worse for Israel.
Larry, I'm very interested in the use of American force, as you know, in Gaza. And if your sources, non-public sources, allow you to reveal whatever you learn about this, particularly if any Americans fired weapons or were fired at, please do let us know. Last question. That shirt you're wearing, did you get that in St. Petersburg?
No. That, actually, this is how they knew I was an American, because the Russians are sort of low key. This is an old Tommy Bahama shirt. When I put this on in Florida, we call that business casual.
Got it. You look great, my man. I'm happy you're well. I'm sad that I wasn't with you, but there'll be another time. All the best, Larry.
Well, listen, I realized that I was what I'd call a C-level celebrity. That A-level celebrity is a guy named Judge Napolitano. The number of people that kept coming up to me, where's the judge? How's the judge? We've always watched the judge. I mean, you don't realize, the number of subscriptions is one thing, but the number of people from different countries, and I'm not talking just, one country, the variety of countries that come up and they watch you. You're must watch for them. So congratulations.
Well, thank you. And thanks for all you do for us. And we'll look forward to the intelligence roundtable on Friday afternoon.
Sure. See you then.
Thank you. Thank you, Larry. All the best.